Welcome to the Heart of a Viking. This channel offers elementary art lessons taught by Mrs. Minto from the Cape Henlopen School District in Delaware. I look forward to virtually creating with you. There are new lessons posted weekly. Subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss a single one. So go grab your art supplies and your thinking caps and let's begin. Well, hello, second graders. Have you ever taken a jar like this outside and tried to capture bugs to put in the jar so that you could investigate them? Well, I know I have. So that's going to be the inspiration for our project today. So there are lots of different kinds of bugs that could fit into this jar that we could use to investigate. Let's start by learning how to draw a jar like this and then putting some fun bugs inside. Alright, we're going to start at the top with a shape called an ellipse. That's what we use to draw the top of a jar that's open. So it looks kind of like a lemon that's really long and thin, maybe a football. Start by drawing an ellipse way at the top of your paper. Then you're going to draw the sides of the top of the jar. That's where maybe if there was a screw-on lid, you could screw on the lid. And then finally, the bottom part can be any shape you want. I'm making mine kind of round, a little different than the jar that was in the beginning of our video today, but I kind of like this one. Nice and round in the center, lots of bugs would fit in here. And then I need to remember, once I get to the bottom, to put another ellipse at the bottom to show the bottom of the jar. Okay, now I'm ready to draw some objects inside the jar. Not the bugs yet, anything that I could drop down inside. Maybe some sticks for the little bugs to crawl on, or leaves, or flowers, things from nature. So think about a couple of things from nature that you could put into the jar that your little bugs would love to crawl around on. Okay, then you can grab a marker. I'm going to use a black Sharpie marker, and I'd like for you to outline as much of your jar and the objects that are inside as you can. The only exceptions would be if there is something that you drew that's really small, and by outlining it, it would just make it look messy. In that case, you don't have to outline it. But for most things, you should be able to put a nice black outline around them. Okay, so now for the fun part. You need some washable Crayola markers or whatever brand you have. I just happen to have Crayola here in the art room. And I'm going to actually draw a circle or an oval on my fingertip and quickly, while the ink is still wet, press it onto the paper and leave a fingerprint. Then I think I want another pink one, but I want it to be smaller, and I'm going to put it up on the branch. I'm actually going to connect a few fingerprints here together. These fingerprints are going to become our bugs, so don't put too many. Think about what you're doing before you do it so that you don't end up with 1,000 bugs in this jar, and then it would just look like it's too much. If you have more than one color at home, make sure you pick a separate finger for the second color because the colors would mix together and sometimes they won't make nice colors. Although this raspberry and yellow would make a nice combination, that's okay. Make sure you pick separate fingers for separate colors. Alright, so now I'm going to be putting a couple of yellow dots that are near each other. You'll see what I'm making in 1 second. So now I'm going to switch to either a black ink pen or a black Sharpie. I have a really fine black Sharpie. This is different from the one I was using before. This one acts more like a pen. So you can use a black ink pen for this, or you can use a very thin black Sharpie. And what I'm doing is I'm drawing some lines on and around my fingerprints to make it look like a bug. So these 4 yellow dots with the pink one turned out to be a butterfly. And this little raspberry one is going to become a ladybug. And I wonder if you could guess what all of these little raspberry circles in a row are going to be. I hope you guessed a caterpillar. Now I know that there are some students out there that aren't going to be super excited about drawing and coloring on their own fingers and then pressing their fingers on the paper. So in that case, instead of coloring on your fingers and pressing them, you could just color on the paper, right? So just grab your colorful Crayola markers, draw your oval or circle with your marker, let it dry for a second, and then use your Sharpie or ink pen to draw the details on top. So I'm making a little bumblebee here. Same idea, except I just didn't do the fingerprinting step. And then finally, once you're all done with the fingerprinting and the bug drawing and detail making, then I'd like for you to color the objects that the little guys are all crawling on. But I have a challenge for you. When you think of a leaf, probably the color that comes to your mind is green. How about a stick? Probably brown. But what I'd like to challenge you today is to mix colors together to create interesting new colors that are appropriate, of course. So instead of just making this leaf green, I used my yellow green and my regular green and let them mix together. What happens if you color with yellow green first and then put the dark green on? What about if you did it opposite? What if you did the dark green first and then put the light green on top? How would it look different? What if you didn't press very hard with one or the other? You can get so many different varieties of greens with just these 2 colors. So that's what I'm looking for you to do too. In addition, do that with everything, with your sticks, with your flowers, whatever else you dropped into your little jar for your little bugs to crawl on today. All right, so please color the objects that are also in the jar. And then finally, I'd like for you to grab a color that would be appropriate for the jar itself, like the glass portion of the jar. And we're going to do a shading technique. This is tricky. Of the whole project, this is probably the trickiest, because what you need to do is on the edges of the jar, you're going to press kind of hard with your crayon, but then as you move closer to the center of the jar, you're pressing softer and softer and softer along the way, so that you have these dark edges but softer, lighter middles. This creates a shadow, and that shadow really makes the jar look 3D. In addition, if a bug or a leaf or a piece of grass is in the way, just color over it, because we want people to know that these little bugs and pieces of nature are in the jar, which means they would be behind the glass. And if the glass has a grayish tint to it or a bluish tint, those colors would be in front of our bugs and our leaves and everything. So if a little friend is in the way, color right over them. It won't cover them up, it'll just put a little color over them. Perfect. Now, final step, grab my scissors and cut out very nicely the shape of the jar. Well, there we have it, artists. It is our lovely jar that has awesome little bugs and leaves and things from nature inside of it. I hope you had a great time creating your bugs. I hope you enjoyed this printmaking technique of fingerprinting to get the little bug shapes, and I hope you were able to successfully create a 3D looking jar using that shading at the end. All right, I can't wait to see your photographs on Artsonia, and I'll see you back here next time at the Heart of a Viking. HOB artists, don't forget to hop on over to Artsonia to upload a photograph of your piece of artwork to your art portfolio. I can't wait to see it.